Hello and welcome. Namaste from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Newshour. I'm Gautam Roy. And coming up in the next 1 hour. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says he's ready to pay even a personal price to protect farmers' interest, but won't compromise, as Donald Trump announces secondary 25% additional tariff on India. New Delhi labels Trump's secondary tariffs extremely unfortunate and unfair, unjustified and unreasonable. The MEA says India will take all necessary steps to protect national interests. Governments of 69 targeted nations worry as Trump's reciprocal tariffs take effect. The US President says, besides India, secondary tariffs could be imposed on other nations too. And the Kremlin confirms Trump-Putin meeting is likely next week after US President says there's a good chance of their in-person talks over Ukraine very soon. Well, Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Thursday reiterated India's stance of never compromising on the interests of its farmers, even if it means facing economic and personal consequences. The Prime Minister stressed that the government has recognized farmers' strength as the foundation of the nation's progress.
हमारे लिए अपने किसानों का हित सर्वोच्च प्राथमिकता है। भारत अपने किसानों के, पशुपालकों के और मछुआरे भाई बहनों के हितों के साथ कभी भी समझौता नहीं करेगा। मैं जानता हूं व्यक्तिगत रूप से मुझे बहुत बड़ी कीमत चुकानी पड़ेगी, लेकिन मैं इसके लिए तैयार हूं। मेरे देश के किसानों के लिए, मेरे देश के मछुआरों के लिए, मेरे देश के पशुपालकों के लिए आज भारत तैयार है।
A firm and direct message from Prime Minister Narendra Modi to those trying to pressure India. Reaffirming his unwavering commitment to national interests, Prime Minister Modi made this declaration during an event dedicated to a man who led India's Green Revolution and made the nation self-reliant in food production.
प्रोफेसर MS स्वामीनाथन मां भारती के सपूत थे। उन्होंने विज्ञान को जन सेवा का माध्यम बनाया। उन्होंने वो चेतना जागृत की जो आने वाली कई सदियों तक भारत की नीतियों और प्राथमिकताओं को दिशा देती रहेगी।
Inaugurating the MS Swaminathan Centenary International Conference, Prime Minister Narendra Modi also released a commemorative coin and a postage stamp to mark the occasion. The theme of the conference was Evergreen Revolution, the Pathways for Biohappiness.
आज दुनिया भर में बायोडायवर्सिटी को लेकर चर्चा होती है। इसे सुरक्षित रखने के लिए सरकारें अनेक कदम उठा रही हैं, लेकिन डॉक्टर स्वामीनाथन ने एक कदम आगे बढ़ते हुए बायो हैप्पीनेस का आइडिया दिया। आज हम यहां इसी आइडिया को सेलिब्रेट कर रहे हैं।
Honoring the legacy of Dr. MS Swaminathan, the MS Swaminathan Research Foundation and the World Academy of Sciences have instituted the MS Swaminathan Award for Food Security and Peace. Prime Minister Narendra Modi presented the inaugural award to Professor Adrenal of Nigeria and called upon scientists to ensure nutrition security for all.
डॉक्टर स्वामीनाथन से प्रेरणा लेते हुए अब देश के वैज्ञानिकों के पास एक बार फिर इतिहास रचने का मौका है। पिछली पीढ़ी के वैज्ञानिकों ने फूड सिक्योरिटी सुनिश्चित की। अब न्यूट्रिशनल सिक्योरिटी पर फोकस करने की आवश्यकता है.
Prime Minister also urged greater integration of modern technologies such as artificial intelligence and machine learning into agriculture. Prime Minister Modi emphasized India's rich legacy of traditional farming knowledge and advocated for merging it with modern science to create a holistic agricultural ecosystem. Prime Minister Modi also urged young scientists and entrepreneurs to innovate for the welfare of farmers and help India lead in green production. Bureau Report, DD India.
Now, despite strong objections from countries like India, Donald Trump is not backing down on his tariff tyranny. The US President's reciprocal tariffs have come into effect now against 69 nations, which includes India. Trump has also hinted that, like India, China could also be hit with additional secondary tariffs. He's also announced a 100% tariff on semiconductor imports, despite reports that US inflation has already started to climb. Take a look.
Just a day after hitting India with 25% additional secondary tariffs for importing Russian oil, New Delhi dubbed the move as extremely unfortunate, apart from unfair, unjustified, and unreasonable. Donald Trump took to social media at midnight to announce the rollout of his reciprocal tariffs, imposed on 69 nations ranging from 10% to 41%, saying billions of dollars are now flowing into the United States. The US President also told media persons covering his event with Apple CEO Tim Cook at the White House on Wednesday that, like India, more secondary tariffs could be in the offing against other nations such as China.
Indian officials have said that there are other countries that are buying Russian oil.
It's okay.
Like China, for instance,
It's
buys
okay.
more.
Yeah.
Why are you singling India out for these additional
It's
sanctions?
only been 8 hours, so let's see what happens
We're
over the
gonna
next.
see more secondary sanctions
you're going
very
to see a lot
soon.
more.
So this is a taste of
You're
what's
going to
to
see a
come.
lot more. You're
Mr.
going to see so much
You were the
secondary sanctions.
On the India penalties, do you have any similar plans to enact more tariffs on China as it relates
Could
to their
happen.
purchases?
Could happen. Depends on how we do. Could happen. It may happen. I mean, I don't know. I can't tell you yet, but we did it with India. We're doing it probably with a couple of others. One of them could be China. Yes.
Trump also used the White House Apple event to fire another tariff salvo, this time targeting the import of semiconductors with levies up to 100%, with some exceptions.
We'll be putting a tariff on of approximately 100% on chips and semiconductors. But if you're building in the United States of America, there's no charge, even though you're building and you're not producing yet in terms of the big numbers of jobs and all of the things that you're building. If you're building, there will be no charge.
From Swiss watches to Korean EVs, and from Canadian timber to furniture, prices of almost all imported goods to the United States are expected to spike, while there are reports that inflation has already started to creep up. Goods which are expected to be impacted are electronics. Computers are among the top US imports from high tariff nations like China, Mexico, Taiwan, Vietnam, and Malaysia. Clothes. America buys most apparel from other countries like China, Vietnam, Bangladesh, India, and Indonesia. Watches. Wristwatches from Switzerland among top imports, which has 39% tariff now. Shoes. China, Vietnam, Indonesia are top sources for footwear, where minimum tariff is 19%. Alcohol. Europe tariffed at 15% is the main supplier of alco-bevs, including wine, whiskey, and vodka. Furniture. Vietnam is the top source of imports, followed by China. Toys, mostly made in China and Vietnam, where toy makers have warned of higher prices. While leaders of nations like India and Brazil have vowed not to be cowed down by Trump's tariff tyranny, the Swiss government held an emergency meeting on Thursday after its president returned empty-handed from Washington after meeting the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio. It has decided to continue negotiations with the US to soften the blow to 60% on its US exports, which will be subject to higher tariffs.
We also want a regulated relationship with the United States. It is an important trading partner. But today, we said that this should not come at any price. So if we have to spend a lot and still have high custom duties, then we have to consider whether that this is what we want.
South Africa's Cyril Ramaphosa also spoke to Trump on Wednesday before 30% reciprocal tariffs for his country kicked in, but he too got no reprieve. Gautam Roy's report, DD India.
And DD India's Saurabh Shukla joins us now from Washington, D.C. Hi, Saurabh. Must be an exciting time to be a journalist in D.C. these days. The zingers just don't stop coming from the White House. But will it remain unconcerned about the voices of strong protest and outrage, really, coming out of its trading partners such as India and others?
Well, Gautam, there's always an exciting time for journalists. But yes, this is very exciting, covering President Trump's White House. Every day there is some new surprise coming up. But I can tell you, India's strong response to President Trump's tariffs has been noted well here in Washington, D.C. They know that there are a lot of people who are part of the administration as well, recognize the fact that India is a strong and a close ally. In fact, President Trump on several occasions have mentioned his close respect and friendship for Prime Minister Modi. But he's a deal maker. He's a businessman who obviously wants to cut deals. And tariffs is his way of trying to think that he can cut out a better deal. But, as I said, that India's response has been recognized. And obviously, behind the scenes, we do expect that this tariff blow that has happened to our bilateral partnership can go away, because I'm an optimistic person, and I know that this relationship has a lot to offer to both countries and to the world, and I do hope that some kind of a middle ground solution can be found, because obviously this tariff will hurt not only the two countries but also has an impact directly on the consumers as well. The US gets a lot of pharma products from India, even though they are not in the ambit of these tariffs. But certainly, obviously India may at some stage have that as a negotiating tactic as well. So I think a lot happening behind the scenes as well. So I won't say that all is over, but certainly it has come as a setback to the bilateral relationship. And obviously people recognize that India's strong statement, which has conveyed to the US that while it values the friendship, but these tariffs were completely unreasonable. And as friends, we continue to disagree on certain issues. That's the reason, seen in the context of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's strong statement about protecting India's national interest and the interest of India's farmer, fishermen, also the dairy industry. That obviously is being seen as a very powerful statement coming out from New Delhi. Gautam?
Certainly, and must also have been noted that India, apart from words, has, expressing its outrage, hasn't taken any retaliatory steps. Now, just tell us, Saurabh, what is the buzz in Washington, especially related to the secondary tariffs, particularly when some positive developments have also taken place on the Ukraine front, with a meeting which has been described as constructed by one side, and venues have also been suggested for a key heads of state meeting?
Well, that's a great question, Gautam, because I know a lot's happening. And if you see President Trump's proclamation also, which, added additional tariffs, he has given a window for countries like India to get away from these tariffs, because there is a clause 4 which clearly states that if he is advised by senior officials or situation changes, he will withdraw these tariffs. And obviously there is a 21-day window as yet. And I think if there is a further progress on talks with Russia, in fact, there's a sense here that there's a summit meeting being planned with President Trump and President Putin of Russia. If that's successful, certainly, then some of, the tariff that has been added to India may just go away. So, a lot's happening, as I said. Diplomatic, I would say negotiations are happening both between US and Russia, and obviously Ukraine has to be brought in there as well. And obviously, Indian negotiators are also not giving hope, because, as I said earlier, this relationship between US and India has been nurtured for years. And under Prime Minister Narendra Modi's leadership, that has gained big momentum. And President Trump himself has recognized that. So I don't think they don't want this relationship to go away. But as I said earlier, that these tariff is being used as a strategic tactic by President Trump to carve out a better deal.
Okay.
Gautam?
And sort of how is the everyday American viewing this? Is he, him, or she, her, or they, them worried over prospects of prices of imported goods spiking even higher? Because experts are also saying that all this will make investors wary about betting on America.
Well, I would say that, he has been selective about putting tariff. If you saw the announcement that he had with Tim Cook, where Tim Cook obviously presented him with a gold iPhone, and that's the way the Trumpian White House works, and he gets very excited about these things. And certainly he exempted, Apple and even companies like NVIDIA from his chips tariff. So certainly he has a way to exempt certain companies. But yes, I won't, there is a concern amongst the consumers as well when I talk to people in the grocery stores, what is going to be the impact? The impact hasn't really kicked in because a lot of goods were already in the country. But yes, if this continues, in the following months, there's going to be a heavy Christmas shopping that starts to come in, right? A lot of consumers obviously may get impacted because a lot of these goods are getting imported. And, obviously websites like Amazon, which are a major source for these shoppers, they may have to raise, the prices. As of now, it hasn't happened as yet, but certainly there is a concerns amongst people here as well on that count, Gautam.
All right. Well, let's see how things go. We still have, 20 odd days for things to crystallize. Thanks a lot for joining us for the moment, Saurabh Shukla from Washington, D.C. And still to come on DD and India Newshour. Intel shares drop after Trump calls for its CEO to resign immediately. We'll tell you why. The UK confirms first migrants have been detained as part of France's return deal. And the UAE denies false Sudan claim of destroying Emirati plane carrying mercenaries.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy, always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Newshour. I'm Gautam Roy. Now, Russian President Vladimir Putin has indicated that the United Arab Emirates could serve as a location for a meeting with US President Donald Trump. The remark comes amid ongoing preparations for what would be the first summit between the two leaders since 2021. The potential meeting follows talks between Putin and Trump envoy Steve Witkoff in Moscow. DD India's Dheeraj Das has more.
Russian President Vladimir Putin opened talks in Moscow on Thursday with President of the UAE, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. Putin said UAE is one of the suitable places to hold a meeting with United States President Donald Trump.
We have a lot of friends that are ready to help us organize such an event. Here is one of our friends, the President of the United Arab Emirates. I think we will decide later, but this could be one of the suitable venues.
Putin also said he was not against meeting Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, adding certain conditions should be created for such a meeting.
I have been repeatedly saying that I, in general, have nothing against it. This is possible. But before that, certain conditions should be created. And unfortunately, we are still far from creating such conditions.
Earlier, Kremlin said on Thursday that a summit between Presidents Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin was set in the coming days, with the two sides already having agreed in principle.
Speaking about the Ukrainian matters at the suggestion of the American side, an agreement was essentially reached to hold a bilateral meeting at the highest level in the coming days. That is, a meeting between President Vladimir Putin and President Donald Trump.
The announcement came a day after Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, held talks with Putin in search of a breakthrough to end the Ukraine war. The White House described the meeting between Witkoff and Putin in Moscow had gone well, and Moscow was eager to continue engaging with the United States. Earlier, Trump said he was likely to meet Putin face-to-face very soon.
Well, there's a very good prospect that they will. And we haven't determined where, but we had some very good talks with President Putin today. And there's a very good chance that we could be ending the round, ending the end of that road. That road was long and continues to be long, but there's a good chance that there will be a meeting very soon.
The summit would be the first between sitting US and Russian presidents since Joe Biden met Putin in Geneva in June of 2021. Russia went to conflict in Ukraine in February 2022, citing threats to its own security and plunging relations into deep crisis. The meeting comes as Trump seeks to broker an end to Russia's military operation in Ukraine. Dheeraj Das for DD India.
And India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval, during his recent visit to Moscow, has confirmed that Russian President Vladimir Putin is set to visit India. Doval described the India-Russia ties as very special and emphasized the strategic depth of the relationship.
Very special relationship, a long relationship, and we highly value our strategic partnership. We have had high-level engagements, and these high-level engagements have contributed very substantially. We are very excited and delighted to learn about the visit of His Excellency the President of Russia, President Putin, to India. I think that the dates are almost finalized now. The more important thing is this, that is, these summit meetings have always been the watershed points.
Now, as US tariffs on Brazilian goods jumped to 50%, Brazil's President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva has said that he sees no room for direct talks with US President Trump, which he believes would turn into a humiliation for him. Speaking in an interview, he expressed optimism about close relations with India and said that Brazil and India have the potential to reach $100 billion in trade.
Brazil faces 50% tariff on its exports to the US. President Lula da Silva of Brazil is refusing to call US President Donald Trump to discuss the issue. Instead, the Brazilian leader has said he is looking forward to enhancing trade relations with countries like India.
If the United States does not want to buy, we will look for someone else to sell to. Any country that does not want to buy, we are not going to stay crying because they do not want to buy. We are going to look for others.
President Lula's call with PM Modi is expected to be followed by discussions with other members of the BRICS group as Brazil tries to buffer the impact of rising US protectionism. The Brazilian leader enjoys a great personal chemistry with the Indian Prime Minister, who has visited Brazil twice in recent times, for the G20 summit in November 2024 and for the BRICS meeting in July this year. Brazil currently holds the BRICS presidency. It will be India's turn to host the summit in 2026. On Wednesday, in an interview with the news agency, President Lula said he saw no room for direct talks with President Trump, which he believes would turn into a humiliation for him. He also said that the President of the United States trying to dictate rules for a sovereign country like Brazil is unacceptable to him.
If the negotiation is not resolved, we have other mechanism to make a counterpart. We have the WTO, we could file a complaint with the WTO. We can go alone or we can go with a group of countries, and then Brazil can also take action against American products. What we want first is to use and exhaust all possibilities in negotiation before we take any other measure that means negotiations are over.
On the other hand, President Lula is quite optimistic about close relations with India. During PM Modi's state visit to Brasilia on July 8 this year, President Lula had said his country aims to triple trade flows with India from $12 billion last year.
Now, Intel shares have dropped after President Donald Trump called for the immediate resignation of the chipmaker's CEO. In a Truth Social post, Donald Trump said Intel chief executive Bhutan is highly conflicted and must resign immediately. There is no other solution to this problem." End quote. Now, the move is due to his proximity to Chinese firms, alleged proximity rather, and raises doubts about the future of the mega American chip icon. Intel did not immediately comment on Donald Trump's post. In fact, Tan was named as Intel CEO in March as the chipmaker tried to do some course correction and rebound from dropping sales under the stewardship of Pat Gelsinger. Britain has begun detaining migrants under a new return deal with France aimed at curbing small boat crossings. The one-in-one-out pilot scheme agreed last month allows Britain to return undocumented arrivals to France while accepting an equal number of legitimate asylum seekers with family ties in the United Kingdom. So far in 2025, over 25,000 people have crossed the channel in small boats.
Well, the pilot has now begun, and the first migrants who arrived on small boat are now in detention. That is the first step to removing them to France, because no one should be making this journey in the first place, and that's why this is now starting the process to return people and to undermine this vile trade in people.
The United Arab Emirates has rejected on Thursday an announcement from Sudan's armed forces saying they had destroyed an Emirati plane ferrying Colombian mercenaries into the country to back its paramilitary rivals. Sudan has been locked in a war between its army and the paramilitary rapid support forces since April 2023, with the military long accusing Abu Dhabi of supporting the RSF, an allegation it denies. Now let's take a quick look at stories making news around the world as well. The Bank of England has cut its key interest rate by 0.25% on Thursday, the lowest level in 2.5 years. After the announcement of the interest rate cut, the British government bond yields rose and stocks fell. Ivory Coast President Alassane Ouattara attended a military parade celebrating the nation's 65 years of independence. On the 7th of August 1960, Ivory Coast declared its liberation from France. Since then, every year, people commemorate their Independence Day by carrying out cultural activities and parades. Greenpeace activists filled a road with a pool of black liquid symbolizing oil near the entrance to the UN, where multi-day talks on plastic pollution are underway. The NGO staged a protest against the participation of petrochemical lobbyists in the UN Global Plastics Treaty negotiations in Geneva. Spanish Civil Guards, a mountain force, restored a historic metal cross atop Aneto, Spain's third highest peak, through an airlift operation. Originally placed by a group of hikers in the 1950s, the cross was removed last year for restoration work. And still to come on DD India Newshour, we'll be speaking with our expert guest about the impact of the reciprocal tariffs imposed by Donald Trump worldwide and on the American consumer.
Welcome to Jaipur.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Newshour. I'm Gautam Roy, and now we're turning to our top story, which is all about Donald Trump's tariffs, how not only the reciprocal tariffs have come into effect effectively midnight earlier today. We also have these secondary tariffs being announced against India will be imposed in another 20 days, and already a lot is, in fact, there's a bit of a turmoil worldwide because of it. We've had Switzerland trying to get these reciprocal tariffs reduced or sort of waived, but that's not succeeded. Even South Africa made an attempt, not to much avail, although both sides are saying that negotiations will continue with the US. And that's the refrain for perhaps India as well, although that's not been spelt out in the kind of protest, strong protest with a sense of outrage that India expressed very soon after really those secondary tariffs were announced. Dr. Nilanjan Banik is with us, senior economist, who's joining us from Washington, D.C. Good evening to you, Dr. Banik. What do you make of what's happening in terms of how this is going to impact not just global trade, but even it's changing the way nations deal with each other at a geopolitical level?
I don't think it's going to impact if you are looking into India as a country. When it comes to the impact of tariff, let's try to understand, let's try to break it down. If I'm looking into India, the amount of exports which are going to the US, we are actually contributing 18% of our total exports are actually going to the US. Now, which are the items which are likely to get hit? Because not all the items are coming under tariff. Now, people are talking about textiles and gems and jewelry. These are the two most important items, because the other items which are of importance to India, namely pharmaceutical, medicament, as well as electronic products, these items are yet to be under that extra tariff that you're talking about. And we have 20 days time. And my sense is within this 20 days time, some kind of ceasefire will happen with Russia, which also implies that India is not going to get into this sanction. Now, if I am talking about these other two items, namely gems and jewelry and textile, out of this 18%,
there's agri products as well. For example, shrimp.
Agri product is something they want us to give them in the Indian market so that we have to reduce our tariff, which Indians are not agreeing to. But when it comes to our exports, if I look into textile items, it's only 3% of that 18% of our total exports. So in terms of value addition, it is actually less than 1% of our total export bill. So in that way, I don't think it's going to impact much of our textile exports. What India can do for gems and jewelry, we can actually shift our production base to other countries, for instance, to Mexico, for instance, to UAE, because earlier what we have seen China has been doing is whenever they are getting under this tariff war, they were actually shifting their production base and trying to re-export their same items to US through third country, for instance, Mexico, Canada, and even Latin American countries. So India can take up this strategy of exporting, in particular, gems and jewelry items from countries like UAE. You should also note that after the sanctions from Russia, we have actually started importing lots of rough diamonds. Rather than importing it from Russia, we are actually now importing from UAE. So in a way, we can actually set up our base in UAE and start exporting our gems and jewelry from UAE to get outside this tariff thing. Also, I should mention, this is not the first time Mr. Trump has come up aggressively against Indian exports. You will also see in his first tenure as the president, he called India as the tariff king, and he has actually removed India from the GSP list, globalized system of preference.
Yes.
And what has happened after that, you will find that impact on Indian export was not that great. So my sense is even now, although there are lots of sound talk about this Trump tariff, eventually nothing much is going to happen.
Okay, that's your perspective. And the other one is that something will happen which would make Trump reconsider. One is in the case of the secondary tariffs. There could be talks with Russia that could have a positive outcome. And since the problem is really with India buying oil from Russia, that could go away. But as far as the reciprocal tariffs are concerned, how do you think that could be addressed?
See, Already India's tariff is quite high. So even if I'm going for a reciprocal tariff, it actually implies that India has to cut down on its tariff, So, but what the Americans are wanting at this point of time is to get market access in terms of agricultural items, and that is not going to happen for the simple reason we have still close to 50% of our population earning their livelihood from the agricultural sector. And if we were to open up this agricultural sector as well as the dairy sector to the American farmers or for that who are otherwise highly subsidized, so it's not a fair treatment. So in that way, I don't think we should kind of cow down to this whole idea of giving them market access in the agricultural sector. Instead, what can happen and maybe is going to happen is we are going to give more concession to the American energy players. We are going to buy more American natural gas as well as oil from the US. We are also going to buy more defense items from the US, something that India has already committed when Mr. Prime Minister Modi visited Mr. Trump way back in February, earlier this year. So after all, we have to recognize Mr. Trump is a businessman, So you have to give him something so that he can talk to his electoral bases saying that they're getting something from India. So in that way, we can give them more access to defense, more access to natural gas, more access to energy. But of course, if you are talking about agriculture, that is something not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is going to impact the livelihood of our farmers.
Yes,
so that
Prime Minister Modi has made that very clear today, that he will make no compromise, even if he has to pay a personal cost for it. But what about the fact that already there are some reports of inflation starting to creep up in the US, and once these tariffs really kick in, right now, of course, a lot of the importers in the US bought a lot of imported goods at the previous tariff levels before the reciprocal tariffs kicked in. But as the weeks and months move on and we get into the Christmas season period where a lot of shopping is done, it might begin to pinch really badly. Do you think Donald Trump will reconsider at that point of time?
See, at this point of time, we are kind of witnessing a little bit increase in price of items in Washington and the neighborhood areas. For instance, yesterday when I went out for a coffee, I found the price of chicory and other things have gone up, and that has been actually being written in the coffee shop where we are going, where we went for our coffee. But at the same time, what Mr. Trump is trying to do, for instance, if you take a pharmaceutical product, he is suggesting to the American pharmaceutical company that you lower down the price in the US, and the loss that you are going to make because of your price coming down in the US, you charge it from the European counterpart. So basically cross-subsidizing in terms of the price that you are seeing, what is happening. And therefore, we don't see, although the price have gone up a little bit, but it is still under that 3% level, and maybe you should also give kudos to Jeremy Powell, the Fed chairman. He has been able to contain the inflation that we see in the US. So what Trump is basically trying to do, because he has started now getting lots of revenue that is getting generated from the tariff, he is trying to cut down on the American tax, and tax also contribute to the domestic tax also contribute to the inflation. So it's like you are actually increasing the price in certain sector and using that tariff or revenue and try to reduce by giving subsidy to some other sector. So net, as of now, we are not seeing that much increment in prices that otherwise should have happened because of increase in tariff.
All right. Well, that will take some time to kick in. He even talked about giving some sort of a dividend to the people from the increased revenue from tariffs. But he's presuming that this increase that has been recorded at the moment, because again, like I said, importers bought stuff in bulk before the reciprocal tariffs kicked in. Once this sort of an effect goes out, prices will have to be spiked by those who are exporting to the US, and then the consumers will feel the pinch, and perhaps they will stop buying these more expensive goods. The revenue that is anticipated to go up will not go up. And of course, the benefits that Donald Trump thinks will accrue to the American people, that he can pass them on, perhaps will also vaporize. We'll see what happens. Thanks a lot for joining us, Dr. Banik.
Thank you.
Now, in war-torn Gaza, while Israel is anxious over its next move, the humanitarian crisis continues to deepen. Hunger, a collapsing healthcare system, and rising global condemnation mark another grim day in the besieged enclave. DD India's Rahul Upadhyay brings us more.
As Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is set to convene his security cabinet on Thursday at his office in Jerusalem, desperation in Gaza is turning deadlier by the hour. Also in the last 24 hours alone, several deaths, including children, have been reported due to famine and malnutrition.
I lost a 5-year-old son from malnutrition and hunger. For those who say there is no famine here, they are lying. Let them come and see.
According to Netanyahu's office, in the meeting, the cabinet is expected to approve fresh plans for Gaza. A full military occupation of the strip will be instructed to the military to meet all the goals. Meanwhile, the Egyptian Red Crescent Society said on Wednesday that nearly 1,008 trucks have entered Gaza through the Rafah border crossing in the past 2 weeks.
Nearly 1,000 trucks carrying over 14,000 tons have entered, 800 trucks of which have already arrived. Today we are waiting for the trucks that will enter, and we will see how many have arrived. They carry approximately 8,000 tons, of which are food supplies represented by food baskets.
Israeli protesters rallied near the Gaza border against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's plans to seize areas of Gaza it does not already control.
We are here today to demonstrate against the government decision to occupy Gaza.
As Gaza fights to breathe, calls for a humanitarian ceasefire grow louder. But for many trapped inside the enclave, every passing hour is a race against death. With Bureau Inputs, Rahul Upadhyay's report for DD India.
Now, the Indira Gandhi Cultural Centre of the High Commission of India in Dhaka, Bangladesh, observed the 84th death anniversary of Rabindranath Tagore on Thursday. On this occasion, a cultural program was organized at the Indian Cultural Centre, Dhaka, to pay tribute to Gurudev Tagore. Different organizations, namely Bangladesh Shilpakala Academy and others, organize special programs in parts of Bangladesh. Rabindranath Tagore left a profound mark on culture in the entire Indian subcontinent, especially through Bengal, his music and on the performing arts. Let's now take a look at some other stories making news around the country as well. The Election Commission of India has notified the schedule for vice presidential elections. The Commission, through a separate notification, also appointed returning and assistant returning officers for the poll. The Commission has mentioned the 9th of September as the scheduled day for the VP election. The National Green Tribunal has expressed dissatisfaction with the inadequate action taken by Delhi authorities in tackling groundwater contamination in Dwarka due to malfunctioning and defective rainwater harvesting systems in residential societies. The tribunal observed that Delhi Jal Board had earlier communicated with the Delhi Pollution Control Committee recommending the imposition of environmental compensation on defaulting societies. The Department of Food and Public Distribution has notified an amendment to the Vegetable Oil Products Production and Availability Regulation Order 2011. The ministry in a statement said that the amendment seeks to strengthen data collection mechanisms in the edible oil sector through the incorporation of provisions under the Collection of Statistics Act. And still to come on DD India Newshour. Massive multi-agency relief efforts are underway in India's Uttarakhand after the cloudburst incident. And in sports, Victoria Mboko will face Naomi Osaka in the final clash of the Canadian Open.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Newshour. I'm Gautam Roy. Now, after nature's fury struck the northern state of Uttarakhand in its Uttarkashi district, a massive rescue and relief operation has been underway. The Army, the Air Force, the NDRF, the SDRF are all working around the clock in challenging conditions. Chief Minister Pushkar Singh Dhami is also monitoring the situation very closely. Here are the details.
Over 270 people have been rescued till Thursday evening in a massive multi-agency operation 2 days after a devastating cloudburst triggered massive flash floods and landslides in Uttarakhand's Uttarkashi district. The Army, NDRF, ITBP, SDRF, Uttarakhand Police and local administration are working round the clock in one of the most challenging terrains in the country.
4 teams of NDRF, are there present on ground zero, and they are conducting search and rescue operation. Apart from this, there is an important action of evacuation of the people who have been stranded on the Gangotri axis. They are being evacuated in joint operation with other agencies, and the special equipments, heavy machinery, and cadaver dogs are being employed there to ensure that the operation gets successful.
In a critical boost to the operation, the Indian Air Force has deployed Chinook heavy lift helicopters, flying in essential supplies and evacuating the stranded. Air Force stations in Agra and Bareilly were activated overnight to load relief material and coordinate deployment with army teams on the ground. Chief Minister Pushkar Singh Dhami has been on the ground leading from the front. This morning, he reviewed operations with NDRF, SDRF and district officials and visited hospitals to meet the injured. The Chief Minister has ordered strict monitoring of food, water, road restoration, electricity and communication lines.
सेना के लोग, ITBP के लोग और NDRF के लोग और हमारे यहाँ की SDRF सारे लोग बचाव के काम में लगे हैं। सभी विभाग BRO के लोग भी यहाँ पर हैं और सभी प्रकार के प्रबंध किए जा रहे हैं। कल तक हमारा ये मौसम इसी प्रकार बना रहेगा तो कल तक सभी लोगों को हम लोग वहाँ से निकाल लेंगे।
Meanwhile, the Border Roads Organization is racing against time to restore access to the cut-off regions. In the first phase, efforts are focused on clearing the 4 major landslide points and repairing a key bridge, with work expected to begin by tonight.
हमारे जो ब्रिज के जो स्टोर्स हैं वो ऑलरेडी गाड़ी में लोडेड है, हमारे जवान तैयार हैं। हम इनको आगे मूव करेंगे जैसे ये सड़क की कनेक्टिविटी बनती है और लामचीगढ़ में हम ब्रिज, हमारा अनुमान है कि आज रात तक हम वहां पर ब्रिज स्टोर्स पहुंचा करके हम कुछ काम शुरू कर पाएंगे।
Amid heartbreak and debris, stories of resilience, courage and solidarity are emerging. The state machinery and armed forces are pulling all stops to bring life back to the mountains. And for hundreds stranded, every helicopter, every cleared path is a lifeline. Bureau Report, DD India.
France has been grappling with its biggest wildfire in nearly 80 years, with the 3-day blaze still raging near the border with Spain. While in central California, a fast-moving wildfire, Gifford Fire, has scorched over 82,000 acres in less than 5 days, prompting widespread evacuation. Time now to get you some sporting updates as well. Now, in a landmark development poised to transform India's sports entertainment landscape, Prasar Bharati has signed a strategic memorandum of understanding with AX Sport to broadcast Global League Wrestling. The league will be unveiled on the 17th of next month, with its broadcast starting the 4th of October this year. It will air on DD Sports, stream on Waves, and will be available on All India Radio as well. Global League Wrestling is the first professional wrestling league of its kind in India and the Asia-Pacific region. Present on the occasion were Prasar Bharati chairperson Navneet Kumar Sehgal and CEO Prasar Bharati Gaurav Dwivedi, who described the move as the beginning of a new era for Indian pro wrestling.
Particularly DD Sports has been trying to rope in as many as sports bodies and sports tournament in its ambit to showcase, bring about more kind of informative sports culture in the country. We take inspiration from our Honorable Prime Minister, who has been a big sports buff, and in fact what the schemes that he has initiated has promoted sports at a very large level, and we now see more and more medals in many other games also coming to India.
This MOU will provide us the opportunity to create some new content here, reach into the hinterland, locate some of those budding athletes, budding wrestlers, and give them an opportunity to compete not only with each other but also with the best of the best.
We have some more inputs coming in related to our top stories. Prime Minister Modi has put out a post on X and has said that he's had a good conversation with President Lula of Brazil. He's thanked President Lula for making his visit to Brazil memorable and meaningful. The PM added that both the leaders are committed to deepening strategic partnership, including in trade, energy, tech, defense, health and more. A strong people-centric partnership between the global South nations benefits everyone. That's what Prime Minister Modi has put out. We have with us my colleague Jessica Taneja on this. Jessica, tell us more about what sort of tone and tenor did this entire conversation have, and what was the substance?
Well, the details provided in the Prime Minister's tweet, of course, indicates that the conversation with the Brazilian President Lula da Silva were fruitful to the extent that both do share a strategic partnership. You'd recall in the last few months, Prime Minister had also visited Brazil for the G20 summit, and there have been engagements with Brazil now and then, even within framework, apart from the G20 framework. And given the current geo-economic order, this conversation was expected either now or as India hosts the next big summit in the coming year. So there is a lot, of course, to discuss between the two leaders. But given the kind of uncertainties, especially when it comes to other factors that have included in terms of trade and investments and tariffs, this conversation seemed to have also indicated that, yes, the two countries will continue to trade together and will have their own sort of resumption of ties or their bilateral trade as it continues without any further external shocks.
Right. And did the issue of these reciprocal tariffs and, of course, the secondary tariff in India, did that come up at all in the conversation? Because there was an indication that these issues might be taken up by either of the leaders. President Lula has spoken openly about it.
Well, certainly he has spoken openly about it, but from what we are given to understand right now, details of that have not been made public, or we haven't been made aware of whether this conversation about tariff and secondary tariff imposition, since both Brazil and India face a steep 50% tariff. For India, that will be from the 27th of August. For now, it remains 25%, but both are facing similar tariff, conundrums from the United States at this point. But it is not clear whether this was particularly discussed or not, but the conversation did sort of focus on the current relationship, which is a strategic relationship, and the bilateral trade that the two have had in the recent past, and how to have further momentum gained in that, which is where the conversation was, this time at least, limited to Gotham.
All right. Let's leave it at that at the moment. Jessica Taneja, thank you. Now, let's return to sports. We talk about tennis, where Victoria Mboko will face Naomi Osaka in the final clash of the Canadian Open on Friday. The 18-year-old Canadian performed the greatest feat of her journey in Montreal by rallying to defeat world number 9 Elena Rybakina of Kazakhstan 167576. Whereas Naomi Osaka defeated world number 17 Clara Tauson of Denmark 6276 to make her first appearance in the WTA 1000 final since the 2022 Miami Open. That's all we have for the moment in this edition of News Hour. Keep watching DD India for all the latest. But before we go, take a look at this. Well, it's the legendary lightsaber that was used by Darth Vader in the Star Wars films that has gone on display in London ahead of a live auction in Los Angeles. Along with this, Indiana Jones's bullwhip, another legendary tool really in the hands of a hero, and Sauron's helmet, so villain's helmet as well there from the Lord of the Rings, are some of the film props and collectibles which are being exhibited. The total collection is worth to be estimated to be $10 million US.